بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين. اللهم ربنا أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه، وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم أرنا حقائق الأشياء كما هي، ربنا زدنا علما وعملا وإخلاصا يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر أولياءك في غزة وفي الضفة وفي فلسطين كلها وفي مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم انصرنا على عدوك وعدوهم، إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم فرج عنا وعن عبادك في غزة وفي الضفة وفي فلسطين كلها وفي مشارق الأرض وفي مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم نفس كربنا وكربهم وثبت أقدامنا وأقدامهم والطف بنا وبهم يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين. وصل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين برحمتك يا رب. Okay. Okay. State promotes, we had stopped here. State promotes social atomization of individual through intensified competition at all levels. So competition is an instrument, among other things. So state promotes social atomization of individuals through competition. Now, atomization basically means atomization is an act of act or process splitting anything into smaller parts. I think that's from Wikipedia. So it can apply to sections, groups, etc. It says, but it's another way of saying fragmentation and or disintegration. Now, the atomization of society, you can apply this to anything, including atomization of society, for example. Atomization of society atomization society into isolated individuals. So, for example, breaking up unions. So unions are a group, they can fight, they have more power, but if you are an individual, you don't have much chance against a company, for example. So that breaking up unions, you are in individual labor. You can't coordinate with others in any meaningful way, unless it is spontaneous sometime. So that gives, for example, companies more power over individuals. So that's one. So in a similar way, atomization of um, society and social entities within society into isolated individuals. So competition is one instrument of that, which so every individual wants to progress materially in life and basically pitted against other individuals. So competition is a way to break up or atomize society and social entities within society. And one of the results, if not the purpose of this, is that isolated individual. In China, for example, alone, I guess, local government, central government, and party. So there is nothing in between. I mean, obviously, this is an ideal type, but there's nothing in between. So power of party and power of the state, different level states against the individual is huge political power. There are no unions. There are very strong extended families. Family obviously become nuclear family, etc. So it increases the power of the state and the power of the state as well as the power of the party. And obviously, we will come to that. There's then competition among different factions within party and different levels of government and the states, and that also atomize the party and the state against central government and central party apparatus, for example. Because next up, mass mobilization campaigns plays an important role in enhancing state legitimacy. Mass mobilization is mass mobilization is a very common tactic used by both liberal and non-liberal capitalist regimes, and especially at the earlier stages of a development of capitalism in a society. So in 18th and 19th century, social mobilization, health campaigns, other campaigns in order to achieve specific results were common. And mass mobilization campaign even today remain important in China and elsewhere. So first thing to understand is what is mass mobilization. So it's a social, basically the individuation through socialization. And mass mobilization campaigns are a form of socialization through which you achieve a specific form of individuation as well as achieve other purposes. for example, enhancing the legitimacy of a regime, for example. This can be awareness campaign, it can be voluntary campaign, it can be protests. For example, in China, as we saw in the paper, central government actually, the protests are actually pleadings to the central government against local governments, for example. And central government allows that as not only of a way to release the pressure, but also in order to enhance its own legitimacy by, for example, then intervening on behest of these protesters against the local government in order to redress injustices, for example. So mobilization, what is mobilization and what are some of its purposes? So there are many definitions, but one good definition which is useful for our purpose here is to define mass mobilization as a method, instrument, or a strategy through which centralized organization in this case we have party and state, but it can be any organization, attempts to implement a widespread changes in society. It can be change in behavior, for example. So in many countries you used to have, like, for example, mass campaign for people to and you have periodic campaigns, for example, to stick to speed limit, for example, or clean the beaches so to increase awareness that people shouldn't be throwing their rubbish on the beaches, or health campaigns in 18th century, for example, are well-studied phenomena and throughout. So mass mobilization purpose method is to implement political organization attempts to implement widespread changes in society. That can be changes in behavior, and its purpose can be increase the legitimacy of a state or government by, for example, redressing injustices, for example, or it can be mass mobilization to implement certain things. There can be many, but one of the purposes in China's mass mobilization campaigns, which have been mentioned, is to increase the legitimacy of the Communist Party and the central state government, and the central state, for example. So mass mobilization campaigns play an important role in enhancing state legitimacy. Public investment remains large and public investment remain large. and state funds continue to produce a large portion of total output. So that increased the power of the state as well. Factionalization of party into different groups. I mean, that's a historic phenomenon with Communist Party, the central party and central government within them, and all levels of government, and then intra-government and inter-government and inter-party competition, factionalization, and competition and bargaining largely determine the political outcomes. So they are the result of intense competition among individuals within the party and the state, bureaucrats, and people close to the party, and parties and local parties, regional parties, and central parties, and factions within central parties. So it's an intense bargaining and competitive process. That's our policy, and that obviously increases the legitimacy of the state as well, and their stake in the government as well, the stake of the elite. So it's obviously not a one-man government, or not even a directly one party or one state government, although the central party and the central state remains powerful through these maneuvers. And my outcome here, modernization and development provide the raison d'etre of CCP's monopoly of political. So what gives China's central state and the Chinese Communist Party its legitimacy is basically the outcome, the fruits of the development and modernization at the social level, at the state level, at the infrastructure level. So people progress, the material progress and material progress, infrastructure development, technological development, modernization. These are the outcomes which determine or which enhance the legitimacy of the. So if you have less modernization, if people lives are not getting better at all levels, then obviously central government loses its power and legitimacy to that extent. And promotion of Chinese is the principal objective pursued by Chinese foreign policy. So that's why the focus on economics, because that economic interests, because that's the key to the functioning and the legitimacy and the survival of the Communist Party and the Communist state. There's a widespread merger of state and private sector bureaucracy, then continued party presence at factory level. So the state and public planning and the government are key to the economic development, but there is a partnership with the private sector at all levels. And as we saw, the businessmen actually enter into party and have key roles in party administration as well. So these are a few reasons why China is no longer a dictatorship of the proletariat, but it's a dictatorship nevertheless, and the Maoist political program and interest has been modified but not abandoned. I hold this view because so it's a dictatorship of the party and the central state, I guess, through very multifaceted and multi-layered and pluralistic approaches. So that's not a one-dimensional dictatorship in any sense. Now, can such a state aspire to achieve hegemonic status, like become the state of the global capital? Within global capitalist order, one broadly similar state, Bismarck's Germany, tried to achieve a global hegemonic role and was defeated by America. In my view, it is unlikely that China will embrace similar ambitions. Okay, so we'll start from here next time. That's coming to the heart of the conclusion of the chapter. Okay. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه.